Good afternoon, everybody. I have no idea why we look as white as we do, but we're going to press on regardless. Norwich City host Birmingham City here today at Carrow Road. Obviously, we're all hoping for a much improved display to what we saw last weekend in Devon. We've obviously had a cup game in between there, and we await to see what changes, if any, David Wagner will make. So, Paddy, I think we've got a couple of minutes to the team news, so I'll bring you in nice and early. What is your expectation as we await the team news to drop this afternoon?
Well, to be honest, we'll just refer to what David Wagner has said both post-Fulham and then pre-Birmingham at his pressers about responses and unacceptable performance at Plymouth. Fulham, because of the 9 changes, we don't expect many of that starting 11 at Fulham to feature in this starting 11. Time will tell in a minute or two, but essentially it'll be the majority of the group who underperformed and then some at Plymouth for the first time in a Norwich shirt since then. So what do I expect? A pretty stirring response that was a one-off this season. And that doesn't represent David Wagner and this group of Norwich players. So I think that in a nutshell, whether that then leads to the result, but certainly in terms of performance-wise, immeasurably better than the first half, particularly at Plymouth, where they were a shambles.
Yes, we've got about a minute to go. You can, of course, as Tom has done nice and early, you can get your predictions in, and we will flash them at the bottom of the screen as we head through this broadcast, which will be about 10 minutes or so. And we're about a minute away from learning that Norwich City team for the first time. And it's really intriguing, obviously, just to run you up to date with some of the issues. There was a little bit of doubt over Angus Gunn and his fitness after he had an injection in his shoulder in the early part of the week. That's not expected to keep him out long term, but it might just be that, as David Wagner said, it would be a late call. So we'll wait to see on that front. And in fact, we have the team news here. And it is that Porheta starts for Norwich City this afternoon. Borja Sainz is on the bench. So Norwich City line up like this. Gunn in goal. Stacey, Duffy, Gibson and Yanulis. The same back four from last week. Sarah and McLean as the midfield two. It looks like Fashnak on the right. Rowe on the left with Shemiswar Porheta in support of Adam Eder. So I make that one change from last weekend at Plymouth. And the subs, George Long, Callum Fisher, Danny Bart, Sam McCallum, Adam Forshaw, Liam Gibbs, Borja Sainz makes the bench, Onel Hernandez and Huang Yuzhou. Paddy Davitt, one change. Surprised? I'm a little bit surprised.
Well, I mean, Porheta as support to Eder, I'm not sure.
Striker,
I'm not
sure.
sure.
He has spoken about it, hasn't he? How he feels he can play that role.
Well, I mean, Springett operated in that role, if that's the way he's going. I mean, Springett operated in that role midweek. You can debate whether he looked like a second striker. He didn't look like a striker the way he's
not in the squad today.
Well, there you go. The way he miscued that chance in the first half. I don't know. I'm going to hold powder dry on that, Connor. I can't see him as a second striker because when have we seen him as a second striker? You know, left back we've seen him. We've not seen him as a second striker. So, but then, what are the other options? Unless it's a change of shape slightly.
But then you've got Yanulis in there, so he's not going to be playing as a left back. It's not like Norwich are going to move to a 3.
No, but as a second striker, I mean,
well, who else would go in there?
Well, that's what I'm saying. Is it a change of shape? Is it more of a 4 behind Eder, rather than could Fashnak operate in that role? I mean, Johnny Rowe, really intriguing for me. And if it is Porheta as a central striker, then he really has come completely into David Wagner's thinking. Doesn't say much for Wang, though, does it? If it's a central striker, I'll have to wait and see because I don't see him operating as a central striker. If I'm honest, in a 4-4-2 shape, I think there's got to be more nuance to that lineup. But what it does underline, he said it to you, he said it to me in recent pressers around Porheta that he's really grasped the nettle, and then there was more evidence of that in a wide left role. It has to be said. Thank you. Cheers. At Fulham, that.
Thank you.
Ultimately, he looks like a player now, doesn't he? He looks like somebody who could affect what Norwich are trying to do at championship level. But to repeat what I said, he's been good in the left wing, wider left midfield role. So for me, to him starting in and around Adam Eder today, I'll be surprised, almost shocked if I'm honest. So time will tell. But Huang out, no, that's no surprise because he was bang average, wasn't he? And has been since he arrived. And yes, we need to cut him a bit of slack. He's still adapting to what's required of him. David said to you on Thursday, was it, about certain areas of his game in terms of attacking areas. He needs to grasp what's being required of him. So I'm not surprised Hwang has come out. But I am surprised it's 10 of the 11 are still...
Same back four?
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah,
I mean, that's the back four that last week got brutally exposed by Plymouth and their pace and their athleticism on the counter-attack in particular. The type of game you imagine here today, you probably expect Birmingham to deploy a similar approach. Is there an element of surprise that he's stuck with that back four, maybe even throw Gunn in there as a back five?
Which we'll just, you've touched on him there, but obviously David indicated they'd have to wait and see how Gunny came through the final training session. He's clearly fine.
I think we were both expecting that, weren't we?
Yeah, I think we probably did expect that from the messaging earlier in the week. But centre-backs, not a huge... Well, I mean, as much as we did dig them out quite a lot in the Prinkham podcast on the Sunday after Plymouth, rightly, they didn't get any support in terms of McLean and Zara in that first half. It got a bit better, but even Forshaw was culpable on one of the second half Plymouth goals. So I don't think you can isolate those two and say that they were all the problem. They were part of the problem. It's more surprising for me actually that Forshaw's not come in. I think we probably both felt that Forshaw would maybe start today, but he's not gone that route. Rather than the two, because other than Bart. Just double checking. There's no Warner on the bench even, is there? So as good as he was midweek, clearly a bridge too far at this stage of his development. So you only really is Bart going to knock either of those two out? And yeah, I can see why David has retained those two, but I am surprised in terms of in front of them that he's gone. If it is to be Zara and McLean, because personally I think second half it looked a lot better in terms of Ida and Zara in a forward area, with Forshaw in alongside McLean. So, no, I'm not hugely surprised because he hasn't got a huge amount of options defensively, has he, to change it. And maybe he's looking at it and thinking that was so out of kilter with what had gone before this season. It's more ticked over to, okay, I'll make one or two changes, but the majority of you know yourselves, you in those cases, particularly the centre-backs, they're experienced professionals. They know they let themselves down way below what was required. Go and put it right today. And maybe he's ticked more towards that psyche in terms of his selection policy today.
Yes, let's have a look at that Birmingham team then. There's obviously a familiar face between the sticks, and we will bring that up now. There you go. They've got John Ruddy in goal, Cody Drama, Sanderson, Long, and Longago at left back, Bielik and Sunjic as the midfield two, Burke and Miyoshi either side, with Stansfield behind Scott Hogan. Plenty of championship experience in there. They haven't won a game since the back end of August when they beat Plymouth 2-1, but I think the common consensus has been largely that A, they've got a lot of injury issues, but B, their performances have perhaps merited quite a few more points than they've been able to gather. Is it a risk for David Wagner to go in the direction that he has? Because I don't think anyone really could have had an argument, barring maybe Adam Eder, of being dropped after last week and the way that it went. Is there a risk of him naming so much of the same team that played at Plymouth, do you think? If this goes in the way that he we obviously hope it doesn't.
Well, therein is the risk. If it's anywhere comparable to Plymouth in that first half particularly, then he will get it, I'm sure. Because what does that say about that group of players that 2 consecutive weekends in the Championship? But I mean, can you see them being as bad again? No, I don't think you can. Different opponent. They're at home this time around, not away. They've been good at home this season, even against Leicester. So I can't see anything that resembles Plymouth. So if that is the case, then it's just how better they can be. And repeat what I said, let's not get hung up too much, as bad as it was. But for 7-8 games prior to that, even in defeat at Leicester and second half against Rotherham, more or less this group of starting players have delivered and have performed. So, as I say, maybe it's benefit of the doubt from David in many respects. But, to take that hypothesis, if we get anything akin to Plymouth again, it'll be the last time some of these play for a few weeks, that is for sure.
Yes, let's talk about Borja Sainz. Then came on Wednesday, obviously scored a goal on his debut at Fulham. Norwich managing his return a little bit. There's a 21 game here tomorrow at 1 o'clock, which we're also expecting him to be involved in. Obviously, that may well depend on just how today transpires and how much Norwich City need him. But a moment for him, and I guess probably a real positive sign for Norwich that they've got him returning in attacking areas, given what we saw, which was a very bright introduction, I guess, to Norwich City fans on Wednesday night.
Yeah, I mean, he just, we saw him for half an hour against Fulham. I was at the Colney game, which was a development outing, Premier League 2, 10 days or so ago. But what I would say is, setting aside the environment, is that he already looks a player who, when he's on the pitch, you feel something's going to happen. He makes things happen. He's got that urgency to his play. It's worth pointing out if you haven't already seen it. Go back and look at how that goal midweek was sourced. It was him actually pouncing on an error to force a quick turnover, and then he went on and was very direct in his movement from there. So that's a player for me who is going to really add something in the final third, because his natural instincts are to get involved, get in and around those, clever in his movement, clever in his use of space, and he clearly has ability in the final third because his goals and his assists in Turkey last season, albeit in a team who got relegated, but were very healthy, and to me signal that this is a player on the rise. 22 is all he is he? 22?
Yeah.
Just let him adapt to English football, and that's part of clearly where David's head is at, aside from the fitness pre-season element. Ease him in, and then I think the other side, in international break, he will be a regular starter for Norwich. Of that, I have no doubt whatsoever.
I think Norwich are going to win today, just because of the type of game, just how much it's been billed this week, how much flack they got last week. Yeah. I'm going to go for a pretty comfortable 3-1 win, I think. How do you see this one going, Paddy?
Well, you pointed out to me, Conor, they've got a few injuries, haven't they, as well, Birmingham, so have Norwich, we're led to believe, but they've still got enough quality for me. And while not wanting to dismiss Plymouth because it was so atrocious that you can't get past that, really. But overall at Carrow Road particularly, I think they have grasped the nettle this season, and they have looked against different opponents who've posed different problems. They looked like they had the answers, and I think today will be the case. Birmingham, I don't think they've won a game in the last 5, so they've clearly curtailed a little bit from a very bright start. I know Norwich only won 1 in 5, but they were markedly better, that group of players midweek. This group of players, if they're not champing at the proverbial to get out there and put things right from what happened at Plymouth, then you would question the character in the group, and I wouldn't question the character in this group. So it's 2-0. Not quite as confident as you in terms of the 3 goals, but 2-0 Norwich, same margin.
There we go. We shall see. It's going to be a really interesting afternoon, that's for sure. Just in reply to Ben, who says I look like I could benefit from it. I don't think I'm this white in real life. I certainly hope I'm not. I hope someone would have mentioned it to me if I was. I've got a little bit of a cold, but beyond that, I'm all right, I think. Pinken.com is the place to go. The Pinken Plus app as well. We'll have a live blog over there if you want to come and join me this afternoon. And we'll also have the usual analysis and reaction as well, not least from David Wagner post-match. Enjoy the game if you're coming. Enjoy it if you're following from afar. And let's hope we see a much improved Norwich City performance this time out. Thanks for watching.